Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time zone it is, wherever you're in the world. It is your Lore and Saviour, and I'm just baffled, really, about the estate affairs in the TTRPG scene, as it were. But what exactly am I referring to here? Well, late last week there was another scandal within the Dungeons & Dragons community where, as you know, or may know, they're putting out a new version of Dungeons & Dragons they're calling D&D 1, which is nowhere near confusing with the whole fucking numbering scheme that they're going on there. And people have shown concern that it's going to replace D&D 5th edition, but the Wizards of the Coast folks have insisted that it's backwards compatible, which on the surface sounds fucking fantastic, until they put out a thing late last week, them saying, hey, if you want to include all that older stuff like magics and spells and whatnot in your games, fuck you, you're going to have to homebrew it now, and this is specifically if you're using D&D Beyond. They're saying they're going to pull all that shit, and you'd have to homebrew that shit in. And of course, the 5th edition fanbase, particularly on Twitter, went absolutely monkeys bananas over it. Because, you know, they've spent well over 10 years purchasing lots of material, and for them to say that they're no longer going to support it on their official character creator thing, that you just have to add them in as homebrew, it's not only very time consuming, but it's taking the piss somewhat. And of course they backtracked with an apology.jpg or PNG. I don't know what they would have used. And people seem to be happier, but of course nobody seems to trust them for many reasons, and this is just another reason, as it were. And that kind of leads me on to this point here. Why is older material and legacy edition stuff seen as a dirty word now? Truth be told, I don't have any good answer for this. And, well, to be honest, I don't actually have any answer for this. I'm just going to go rant a little bit, because all I can think at this point is just, fuck you, give me money. Like, I don't understand the logistics of doing something like that. And sure, a game's got to go through different editions and introduce new mechanics and throw old things out and refine things that need revising and all that other stuff. That's not my issue here. It's in a situation like D&D and also Vampire the Masquerade, just to pull things back on brand for a moment, is changing the core foundations of the system so much that people who've been playing your game for an excess number of years, I mean, this year is D&D's 50th anniversary. 50 years, and the mechanics haven't really all changed that much. Not that I'm a much player of D&D and similar systems, but I do like to keep on top of things and learn and understand and appreciate all that I can. So at least when I do stuff like this a bit off the cuff, I have some knowledge of what I'm talking about. But when you change the systems of things so much that it becomes unrecognisable to that core fan base. Now of course you have this thing with D&D where it's really pissed people off so much that it's pushed people way into OSR, old school Renaissance or Revival, depending on who you ask, games which are basically D&D clones, like Shadow Dark. I just don't quite understand any of that, to be honest. It's all just a bit silly. And then there's Vampire, and with 5th edition specifically. Again, 5th edition is that cursed number within the TTRPG space. That and 4th, if you know what I mean. Now, I like 5th edition. I've always liked 5th edition. It's 5th edition that got me into Vampire and the World of Darkness as a whole. And, you know, it does some really cool things. I like the idea with touchstones. I like the revisions it made with willpower. I like the hunger system, which are like the main changes, really, at the end of the day. But there is also no denying that it changed things so much that it did ostracise a lot of people. And rather than, you know, updating those core things, these things I've mentioned are huge, sweeping changes. And it's not just that, it's more the attitude the developers, not so much the developers, no, that's quite wrong of me to say that, it's the community management teams and the faces of World of Darkness, shall we say, who have gone against every single demand, plead, whatever you want to put in there, you know, to maybe incorporate some of that older material a bit more, that continue it more, that meta plot and the lore and all those other bits and pieces. So this is different from D&D, where there's like a mechanical difference that's preventing people from like homebrew things, and in some cases trying to force people to homebrew things. And now you have the 5th edition with Vampire and with Werewolf and Hunter, actually, that just go, fuck you, we're resetting the universe. Again, there's nothing wrong with that in of itself. But people don't like that, and it's pushed away their fan base. And I've seen this myself. I have friends and acquaintances who, they like Vampire, they just prefer V20. But the fan base, because of this pushback from the community team with World of Darkness, that it's got a lot of people thinking that the older editions of Vampire are worse. And with Werewolf as well. Like, it's really, really toxic. And I can only suspect and hypothesize what would happen with the D&D stuff. Like, when that comes around, is there going to be like this division of people who like 5th edition and D&D 1 as they're calling it, or 5.5? Or we're going to have like more tribal warfare as it is? And I hate to use that because it's not particularly the greatest word choice as somebody who's British and as white as I am. But you have a look at the arguments and the Addition War between the two vampires. You kind of get what I mean. It's hostile, it's angry, and there are like little tribes of people, you know, that have different views. And it really shouldn't be that way because we're ultimately playing the same game. It's just the support that these two companies have for their stuff is, well, rather lackluster, which is such a shame. Because with Vampire, you've got all this material you can use, right? And you can't really use it without doing a lot of legwork. And a lot of people just don't like the idea of just moving backwards because there's this mental block that if you play an older edition stuff, it's like not so playable or not so current or easy to get into, and that's just simply not the case. In many ways, V20 is a lot simpler than V5. In many ways, V5 is a lot simpler than V20. It's just bizarre that some of these companies, specifically these two, World of Darkness and Wizards of the Coast, really go out of their way to prevent backwards compatibility, be it in their setting, their community, and also the very mechanics of what they're doing, which in of itself is pretty backwards. Alright, Lore, you negative cunt. Like, give us some examples then of companies that do this whole backwards compatibility very well, and pardon the noise as a plane taking off. Go with Call of Cthulhu. That has a whole chapter dedicated at the back of the Keeper's Handbook to converting the older rulings and stuff into the 7th edition, which is the latest edition as of the recording of this. Now, that's fantastic. Like, that's really fucking cool. And also, you can just download that for free from their website, Chaosium's website, and drive through RPG, which is really fucking awesome, if I say so. You have... Now, this one's a bit more optimistic. You have the 2nd edition of the Alien TTRPG. Now, I really want to play this one and run this one. I love the Alien franchise. Well, I say that I've only seen the first one, but I've seen it quite a few times. But I love the premise and the idea of it. And from my understanding of it, the ones that people enjoyed the most, it leans more towards the first one anyway. But anyway, I really want to give that a shot. But they're updating that for a 2nd edition after a few years. And I want to say that's a bit silly, but 2nd edition of Vampire came out a year after the 1st edition. So, you know, it is what it is. But there's been a lot of, like, one of the first comments from Free League, who are the ones who are making it, saying it will be backwards compatible. And given the high standard that Free League put out of their stuff, I'm more inclined to believe that, to be honest. Then you have Aurtakis Games. Now, they still put out their older material. Actually, so does Chaosium. They are, like, going around releasing some of their older materials. They actually released a, like, starter set that had, like, reprintings of the 1st edition material. As I said, you can buy the older stuff as well, even if it's just in PDF form. The fact that they're still supporting it, and also they update some of those settings as well, it's awesome that they're keeping all that alive so it doesn't divide the fan base too much. And if you are wanting to try and order stuff, you now have these free rules to convert themes from old to new. But going back to Aurtakis, you have, like, they fucking sell their old stuff still from their website, and you can get them print on demand and drive through RPG. And those games aren't too dissimilar anyway, so if you have got like like an Arasaka Grunt stat from the Arasaka Corpo book, you can port that over pretty nicely, or make a few changes here and there. But it's not that hard, and really, to me, doing from V20 to V5 isn't that hard anyway, but you go much beyond that and it's quite difficult to do. But you know, Arts, as I said, Art Tales Story Games still support their old material. You can still buy it from their website, which is fucking fantastic. And it's pretty frustrating that World of Darkness doesn't do this with their older stuff either. I mean, there was Onyx Path who was putting out older material, but we all know that stuff's wrapping up now. All the World of Darkness and, to an extent, Chronicles of Darkness stuff they're putting out is like previous Kickstarter materials and the odd little thing here, but they're not really accepting any new materials. They're putting out a couple of Victorian-made stuff, but that all fucking run dry too, unfortunately. They stopped doing Vampire ages ago, they stopped doing Werewolf about a year ago now, and it'll just be a matter of time, which is such a shame. Now, this isn't me being one of those people that, oh, we should carry on with the V20 line. I'm not one of those sorts of people. I understand that as we move from one edition to the next, we do eventually need to say stop to the previous edition material. But as I said, the fact that they've made these huge sweeping changes to their system, so if you want to include them in your material, it's mechanically quite the chore. And on top of that, you have the community fan base that if you prefer this older edition, you are just a smelly little power gamer. I've ranted about this in so many videos before that I couldn't possibly link them in all their themes, and at this point I just want Onyx Path to do cooler, better horror experiences, such as Curseborn, which I've ranted about before, which is what I will put in a card on the corner somewhere for you to go and watch about. But it's just so frustrating that legacy material, older material, is just seen as a bad thing, and how World of Darkness in particular are just so fucking rigid of not changing. Yeah, they put out a community server at the end of last week that I've encouraged you all to go and look at, and assuming that you can still do it, I'll leave a link to that in the description below to let them know of your thoughts and opinions, but I have no real confidence that they're going to listen to that. I feel they're just going to listen to all the positive stuff. They're going to ignore that optional bit at the end that allows people to give their thoughts freely. They're going to ignore anybody who complains badly about them, that makes them look worse than White Wolf, because a lot of people still think that World of Darkness and White Wolf are one entity, when they're fucking not. Because history has shown us they don't care. But I'm really being proven wrong on this, which is me being fucking hopeful. Which brings us to the end of this little rant, I guess. I didn't really say a whole lot, to be honest, and I don't know really what else to say. As I said, I don't have any answers to anything. Just wowzers, just some fucking wild decisions from some of these big TTRPG companies. With that all said, give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and let's start a conversation, which means we're not going to be inflammatory and a complete dickhead. The only one who's allowed to be a dickhead on this channel is me, and cause it's my fucking channel. So yeah, give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. As you scroll down there, you will find a variety of Vampire the Masquerade books, both 5th and older editions of Vampires, because legacy is not a dirty word on this channel. And if you purchase those books with the links provided in the description below, I get some of the money back because I'm an affiliate on the Storyteller's Vault and Drive-Thru RPG, and I'm able to provide all sorts of World of Darkness content for you, covering all spans of their editions. Like, we've covered all of Wraith the Oblivion from 1st to 20th anniversary edition, covering vampire lore from all of the different editions and beyond, basically. But I can understand if times are hard and you don't have the money for it right now, that's absolutely fine. Just like, share, subscribe with any and all who love what I do, and I'll see you on the next upload, whatever that may well be for you. And until next time, farewell.